on your kilt, tear into that haggis and rejoice, my friends, because not only is Union Smack back for another week, but finally, after 5 months of torturous waiting, NXT UK has returned to our screens and I could not be happier. Before we do this though, I am of course your host, the Maniac Matt Tennant, and for those of you who haven't been listening to our weekly shows, shame on you all. Then this is the beginning of a brand new format, a rebirth of Union Smack if you like. Along with the brand new titles, which you've all just witnessed, we will now be coming to you twice weekly. That's more than some of you managed in a year. And it's going to be as and when schedule and time allows, I'll be honest. To bring you the weekly NXT UK review, that'll be on Monday. And our weekly retro review of every In Your House ever on a Friday. So we're going to bookend your week, so there's no excuse to miss us. Now, before I do get started, I have to pre-warn you, I have got a cold, so if my words croak or if I just cough spontaneously in the middle of this recording, then you have my apologies. It's got better, but it's more noticeable, I think. You'll notice it in weeks to come, because I recorded some of the In Your House episodes last week, and it was really bad then. So it's not so bad now, but you will notice it come like In Your House 11 review. Anyway, let's get all the usual out the way first before we get into the relaunch of NXT UK. You can find me as usual on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. You can find Travis on Twitter at The Habiki TMD. Unionsmack.bigcartel.com for all your merchandise needs, and of course Lulu.com, where you can purchase a copy of my first book, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley, and my second book, NXT UK Year 1, which we are running a giveaway of right now on this podcast. So if you want to know how to get your hands on a free copy, or how to win a free copy I should say, then you will have to keep listening to the end, if I don't forget to tell you. If I do, it's on our weekly In Your House reviews, so just go and listen to one of them. So, NXT UK episode 112 from the BT Studios in London, England. NXT UK's new home for the foreseeable future, actually. Just like Full Sail serves as NXT's home in the United States, BT Studios, I am hearing, will serve as NXT UK's new home in England. And finally, it's so good to be talking about some NXT UK again after a hiatus that feels like it's been absolute years, and not just any old NXT UK either. Like, this is brand spanking new NXT UK. It's canon, and not just unseen dark matches every few months when the network, think we need something to spike the ratings. And I have to say, I was so excited when 8 PM UK time came around. When NXT ground to a halt back in April, I was catching up on the brand after it aired. I wasn't watching it live, but this time I was so ready that I was sat on my sofa at 10 to 8, chomping at the bit to get my teeth into something new. And I watched it twice, back to back. Yes, back to back. One, just so I could enjoy it as a fan again, because I haven't watched a lot of wrestling that I haven't had to review as a fan. I have seen, since the beginning of 2020, a few WWE pay-per-views some of them I enjoyed, some of them I didn't. And then the rest has just been things that I review for this podcast. So NXT UK, In Your House, and I don't get to watch it as a fan. I have to watch it with a critical mind on. So I thought I'd watch this once as a fan, so just enjoy it, and then a second time to review it for you wonderfully disturbed smackheads. And I've missed this brand so much. So much. But that's enough. Let's get into what you've all come here for. Episode 112 of NXT UK returned with a bang and began with what people are referring to as the relaunch video package. It featured Shawn Michaels and Triple H as talking heads, and they reminded us how long it had been since NXT UK was in production. And it was a clever little ruse to give the return more impetus, because in actual fact the last time NXT UK was in production was in March. in, was it Coventry? I think it was Coventry. We saw it in April, but in actual fact, March was the last time they actually put on a show and, did everything that they usually do so well with NXT UK. Triple H told us that there was a lot of wrestlers chomping at the bit to get back and a lot of fans who couldn't wait for their return. The video clips are all the stars in various locations and then goes inside the lovely BT studios that they've done a cracking job with. In a tight situation with barely any time, they have done a wonderful job of transforming what's usually a football results studio, where I think it's every Saturday, sometimes they might do it every Sunday, and when British football, I know you call it soccer over there, Americans, but when British football is on during the week as well, they do a results show where you can watch the results come in live if you can't watch the games live on Sky Sports, etc. So I don't know how that's quite going to work now that football season is back on in England, but we'll see. We'll see. So we recap some of the stars. These are Noam Dar, Gallus, minus Joe Coffey, for reasons we'll get into in just a little bit. A-Kid, South Wales Subculture, The Hunt, Ginny, Dave Mastiff, Aoife Valkyrie, Kaylee Ray, Imperium, Walter, and Ilja Dragunov. Now, people like Jordan Devlin and Joe Coffey couldn't be included, just yet at least, because of the recent speaking out movement. Their roles are up in the air right now, but men like Eddie Dennis and Trent Seven and Tyler Bate were all conspicuous by their absence. We would see Seven and Dennis throughout the episode, but there wasn't one mention of Tyler Bate, which was very odd indeed, because, everyone knows he was one of the biggest stars of NXT UK before the break. And I know little things were said about him in the speaking out movement, etc., but nothing to the extent of what anyone else was accused of. I think, if I cast my mind back, Tyler Bate was accused of approaching someone for sex, or approaching someone in a married relationship for sex, something along those lines, allegedly. So I don't know why they didn't include him in this. It was just very, very odd. Unless they plan to bring him up to NXT now and leave that spot open to push a new star into in NXT UK. That is a possibility. The opening video package segues into the brand new title sequence. We have a brand new song. Gone is Dusted by the Asteroid Boys, and in its place is God of War by Wargasm. It's not as punchy. It doesn't get you in the mood as much as the previous one did, but this is a relaunch, so it will grow on us. And one thing to note about this opening video package is that Jordan Devlin can be seen in it right at the beginning. So more on Jordan Devlin later and where I think they're going to bring him back in. But I don't think they're going to fire him. I think they're keeping him out of the public eye right now until everything dies down, or until he and his legal team, because he is getting legal representation over the speaking out movement, until they can close this case, if you like. We won't see him on WWE television, I don't think. Though, something I'm going to say later on might contradict that. You'll have to keep listening. As we come into NXT UK's brand new spanking home, Andy Shepherd welcomes us home, and Sid Scala is waiting in the ring to do the very same. Now, I've already gone through the speaking out movement, etc., but I think it's important to mention here, for anyone confused or anyone who's been following the activities on Twitter. There has been a lot of fuss around Sid Scala on social media in the days before this aired and was indeed recorded. Scala was one of the men named and shamed in the speaking out movement, and he has taken out a lawsuit against his accuser. Now, it's not for us to say whether he's innocent or guilty, we don't know all the facts, but I will say that WWE must have thought the allegations were baseless, or they wouldn't have allowed him back on television. And before people say that WWE don't care about investigating wrestlers who have been accused, just look at Velveteen Dream, etc., just remember they fired Ligero and Travis Banks and a referee. All three of them are gone. They've indefinitely suspended Joe Coffey, And we've been through the Jordan Devlin thing already. Now, I'm not going to make this all about the speaking out movement, but it is important to mention it at least, because it has been a big part of NXT UK's history, let's say, in the last few months. And it would be morose of me to not at least bring it up, and so you know that I'm aware of it, and I'm not just going, oh yes, Jordan Devlin, brilliant, Joe Coffey, brilliant, etc. So we can nip that in the bud now, just about. I don't think there's anything else to come on it later. If it crops up again, it crops up again. But that's out the way now. Let's enjoy this relaunch. Sid Scala welcomes us to the BT Studios and welcomes us back to NXT UK. But he is immediately interrupted by Ilja Dragunov, who looks absolutely fantastic. New entrance gear. He's kept himself in shape over the last 6 months, and honestly, he's fired up. He plays to the imaginary crowd, which I don't like. And then he takes off his jacket and apologises to Sid Scala. Ilja says that he's been waiting 6 long months and that he's been caged and waited so long for a battle. Now, the last time we saw Ilja Dragunov, he was eliminating Tyler Bates to become the number 1 contender to the NXT UK Championship. And it's nice to see that NXT UK are carrying that storyline over. Walter versus Ilja Dragunov is the first big storyline of this relaunch, and I cannot wait, because clearly NXT UK are turning the Russian into their next big star based on this. Now, Ilja doesn't get Walter here. Not yet. Because out comes Noam Dar with a brand new hairdo. It looks, honestly, he needs to cut it because it's starting to look really odd. And he tells Dragunov to calm down. Noam Dar says that Ilja, I can't even speak tonight. Ilja doesn't need a fight, he needs anger management. But the Russian doesn't wait, and he throws himself from the ring onto Dar with a suicide dive, throws Dar back into the ring, and the pair fight before the referees separate them. Sid Scala then gets on the microphone and makes Dragunov versus Noam Dar the main event of the first brand new episode of the relaunched NXT UK. What a beginning this was. Okay, credit where it's due. They wasted no time at all hyping Walter versus Dragunov and getting into the action. And it's obvious. It was obvious to my eyes as soon as Dragunov came out. It was clear that they've finally brought into him as a star, and fingers crossed in the weeks that follow they carry on building him. Do I think he'll beat Walter? No, I don't. But the most important part of Ilja Dragunov's hype and his push will be what comes after Walter. If they're building him for Walter, and then when he loses they just throw him back to the dogs, then it's all been a waste of time. This has to be the beginning of the Russian as one of the main players in NXT UK. Because if it's not, then the next person to come up after him, people are going to look at them and go, well, why are we buying into him? As soon as Walter beats him, then he'll be back down in the mid-card, losing every week. So it's vitally important that this is the making of Ilja Dragunov in NXT UK. We are taken to Andy Shepherd, who announces the main event as official and says that we will hear from NXT UK Women's Champion Kaylee Ray later in the show. Andy Shepherd here is providing commentary alongside Nigel McGuinness for the episode. However, they're doing it from different locations in post-production. It's a puzzling one, because when the world went into lockdown back in March, it was said that Nigel McGuinness had been furloughed by WWE because he was stuck in England and couldn't return, because of all the travel and no one could fly, etc. However, when NXT UK was announced to return, the story completely changed. Like, suddenly Nigel was back in the United States and would provide commentary with Andy for NXT UK via satellite. So if Nigel is back in America, why haven't NXT been using him for commentary? They've hired Stu Bennett instead. Now, by the time you hear this, Nigel could well have returned to the NXT commentary desk, but it's just an odd one that he's there and they're not using him. I don't know. Gallus versus Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan is the first match back on the relaunch of NXT UK. This was advertised in the previews as being for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships, but on the night this was fought under non-title rules, which, for me, it almost took it out of it a bit. I would have liked a Tag Team Championship match to kick everything back off again, where you just didn't know. It's like, are they going to put the titles on Williams and Amir Jordan just to shock us, just to show us that anything can happen in the new NXT UK? But unfortunately, they didn't do that, and I'm not sure why. The first thing you notice about this is that Wolfgang looks absolutely fearsome with his new longer hairstyle. Now, like we said earlier in the episode, Joe Coffey has been indefinitely suspended after the allegations against him, so Gallus will be without their leader for a while. When he does return, and I do believe that he will, NXT UK needs Joe Coffey. It would be the perfect time to have Mark and Wolfie turn on him and have Joe take on the group he formed and fronted. Would Joe Coffey work as a full-blown babyface? Maybe not. But until you try and have an audience there to test it against, no one can say for sure. Unfortunately, and I do say this with somewhat of a heavy heart because it's a relaunch, so I was hoping something would be different. But Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan look exactly the same. They have new ring gear, but it's the same two men we left in April, which is a shame. If there was any two men on the roster as well who needed a makeover, it's these two. But I suppose, the upside of this is having them back in tag team competition means we don't have to watch them in singles action anymore. Mark Coffey and Amir Jordan begin as Coffey snags Amir with a headlock before he turns a hip lock into a backslide, which is a lovely start to the bout. Jordan hits a dropkick, tags Williams, and the pair work on the arm of Mark Coffey. Williams versus Coffey is all go for a short time. And it doesn't last long at all, Williams versus Coffey. It should have done, because they have a great history in ICW together over the ICW 0G Championship. Wolfgang breaks up the party, and the babyface momentum halts, sort of, until Williams executes a lovely series of escapes from a Wolfgang wristlock. There is a lot of arm work here by both teams. It's almost as if there was an edict that went round that everyone needed some arm action. That's an odd sentence, isn't it? Williams and Amir Jordan tag with rapid pace, but Wolfie gets the advantage with a huge clothesline on Jordan, and the heels take control of the bout. Mark Coffey hits a lovely flying back elbow on the Indian competitor, and Gallus cut the ring in half with more arm bars. More arm bars. And you get the feeling that this would have had more effect at this point had Wolfgang bothered to target the injured and taped up shoulder of Amir Jordan, but thankfully that will be rectified by Mark Coffey. Wolfgang reverses the head scissors into a wasteland. Mark Coffey hits a lovely, it's sort of a, I don't know how to explain it. Amir Jordan is sat down, okay, legs splayed. Now, I thought Mark Coffey was just going to stamp on his head, but it's almost a head stomp, curb stomp, if you like, because Amir Jordan's head goes right down between his own legs and into the mat. It's an odd one to describe, but it's very well done. And then Gallus go over onto the bad arm of Jordan, and it's much more pleasing because you believe Amir is really selling the pain after his labrum injury some time ago. Now, at this point of the bout, you don't want to get picky because you're just glad NXT UK is back. But we've always been fair and somewhat impartial, I think. So if something doesn't sit right, then we have to look at it. We'd have to, I'd be doing you a disservice if I just glassed over it like it didn't exist, because it did. Now, not much is happening at this point in the match, and it's ready to almost draw to a close, if you like. All the rest holds and the grinding down really weigh this match down. Now, surely the first match on the relaunch episode of NXT UK, you'd want to impress and put on a show. But, I've been watching wrestling rigorously for 31 years. 31 years this year, Christ, I'm getting old. And of course, I know the whole thing was logical, if not spectacular, but I just felt that Gallus had fallen back into the 2018-2019 Gallus when they weren't very interesting as a team. Do you know, at the beginning of 2020, nearly forgot what year we were in then, though that's no bad thing. At the beginning of 2020, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang were on fire as a tag team. People loved them, but this was the old Gallus, so I'm hoping that this was just a case of shaking off the ring rust and they can return to the team they were at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 in the coming weeks. Because I don't want to see this Gallus, every week. They don't interest me enough. Anyway, back to the match. Gallus hit a double leg beel on Amir Jordan, who finally got the hot tag to Kenny Williams, and the Scot was a ball of fire. He turned a springboard powerbomb into a lovely Hurricane Rana, drove Wolfgang into the buckles with a headlock driver, and if there had been a crowd here, they would have popped big time for this. Kenny nails a cracking springboard dropkick, which he got David Blaine height on. All he was missing was the balloons. His wrecking ball dropkick on Mark Coffey as he came through the ropes was a thing of beauty. And then Wolfgang countered a wheelbarrow facebuster. Now, Williams caught a swinging crucifix pin on Mark Coffey and turned a chokeslam into a wheelbarrow facebuster, which looked phenomenal. Jordan hit Swanton Bombay for a near fall, but the babyfaces wouldn't get much further. Mark Coffey countered a springboard roll-through DDT, and Gallus nailed their powerbomb enziguri combo, which it needs a name. They've been doing it for almost 2 years. But they hit that for the victory. After the match, South Wales Subculture, The Hunt, Pretty Deadly, Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter all came out to confront Gallus, and Imperium appeared on the screens because Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner were still in America for NXT. This just showcased the strength of the NXT UK Tag Team division. However, I feel like a few more teams wouldn't go amiss just to stop it going stale, especially now grizzled young veterans have gone to NXT, and Mustache Mountain are sort of up in the air. We don't know what's happening with them. Next, we get a Saxon Huxley vignette in which he appears to recite a promo in rhyme. Dear God. Huxley is behind a chain link fence and appears maniacal after being locked up for so long. He says that he's all alone and his mind has eaten itself. He then tells us that it was a big mistake to let him out. Boy, you're telling me. And that next week he brings a flood to wash the giant Walter away. He then ends by saying that he comes from a place where dark winds blow. Now, I appreciate the effort to repackage Saxon Huxley, but is going against Walter really going to do that? If Huxley even gets any momentum against the champion, then it's going to make Walter look bad. Saxon Huxley is pure enhancement talent, and if I'm honest, I wouldn't complain if he was axed in favour of some new talent. But Walter versus Saxon Huxley is announced for next week. Hurrah. But sarcastically. NXT UK Women's Champion Kaylee Ray is out next, and she looks amazing. Absolutely stunning. I take back everything I said about her in 2019. She has become one of my favourite women's wrestlers in the world today, and those of you who sleep on her, or the small-minded that go, AEW's women's division is the best. Lock my basement door, mother. You have no idea. This woman is the future, and I would put her head and tails of any women's roster in the world today. You can argue the toss with me if you like, but you will be ignored because I've seen her in action. I've followed her career closely for many, many years, and now she's got the stage to show people what she's capable of. There's no stopping her. Ray says that next week she defends the NXT UK Women's Championship against Piper Niven, and that everyone knows they go way back and have defined UK women's wrestling, which they have. Fair play to her. Ray then says that everyone gets to find out why she is the best. That statement, of course, brings out Piper Niven, and this is where the segment drops in quality. Now, I love Piper Niven. I think she's a tremendous talent, beautiful, sexy woman, but fuck me, she has to stop the overacting. It's getting to Tony Storm levels now, and it's painful. She comes out cleaning her ear with her finger and says that she can't remember a time she's heard Kaylee talk so much. Niven then proceeds to say, in the most cringe-worthy way possible, that she better watch out she doesn't get done for GBH of the ears, and then she does this embarrassing mime to get her point across. Honestly, just pack it in, sweetheart. This is the type of shit that is stopping people buying into you. We don't need the dramatics or the stupid faces. Just be the kick-ass Piper Niven / Viper that we all know and love. It's not that difficult. Piper Niven then tells the champion to tell the truth and tell people how many times she's beaten her in Japan and in the UK. She tells her that she's always had her number. That causes Kaylee Ray to tell her that there'll be no more talking, and she's never beaten this Kaylee Ray. Fair point, she's a new woman. The champion then goes to slap Piper Niven, but Piper blocks her and Ray bails to the outside. Now, if you've never seen these two in singles action against each other, go to the WWE Network, search out their match at ICW Fear and Loathing ahead of next week. It's a belter. Unfortunately, I can't believe I'm saying this after all the moaning I did, before about the shows being nothing but talking, but this was too rushed. And it made the UK Women's Championship seem like an afterthought. You won't hear me say this about verbal segments on NXT UK often, but this should have been longer. A vignette aired for Isla Dawn, which included highlights of her in the ring. The audio from this was lazily taken from her debut vignette all the way back in 2018. A second vignette aired for Aoife Valkyrie, which was identical to Isla Dawn's. The graphic then tells us that the pair are in action next. Why? Why would you do this now when both women need a victory and a serious build? We've seen Aoife Valkyrie a handful of times before the break, so there was no way her character could sustain a loss, and Isla Dawn was just finding her feet before NXT UK went off the air. So there's no way that she could sustain a loss without it putting her backwards either. This was a lose-lose situation. And I'm sad to say this after 5 months away, but management still don't get it where some of their talent is concerned. They just don't. But Aoife Valkyrie versus Isla Dawn was next. It is what we got. And to be fair, Isla Dawn looks amazing. But Aoife Valkyrie still has that fucking awful, cringeworthy pose where she frames her face with her hands, and it makes me shudder every time she does it. Please find something else. Now, this is a rematch from earlier in the year, which didn't need to happen, and which Dawn lost. The match begins with a series of headlocks by Aoife Valkyrie, which Isla escapes really well, and then for some reason plays to the crowd. NXT UK really need to stop piping in the crowd noise. It's fucking cringe. Especially when the wrestlers respond to it like there are people there. There wasn't. There was nobody in the crowd, but Isla Dawn turned and she winked at the sound of the crowd noise being piped in, and it just looked absolutely hideous. Aoife Valkyrie's drop downs on the crisscrosses need work. They look dangerous. She looks more like she's trying to hit a crossbody, and I shit you not, it falls a cunt's hair away from tripping up her opponent. One miscue and someone is coming away with a broken nose. She does, however, nail a beautiful spinning heel kick to her credit. From there, Valkyrie nails a good-looking springboard crossbody, and it's back to the headlocks. I will say this, though, as much as it sounds like I'm being down on this match, and for some part I am, because there are things here that both women really need to brush up on. They both looked physically fantastic. Aoife Valkyrie botches an electric chair Hurricane Rana. She just kind of slides off of Isla Dawn's shoulders and they just roll over on the mat. And then she did the most unprofessional thing I've seen in NXT UK yet. She did a Shawn Michaels. She went after Isla Dawn verbally for messing up. And you could see it in her face. This wasn't part of the action. She marched towards her, pointing at her, shouting at her, and Isla Dawn didn't really know what to do, but she just got on with the match. She buried a knee into the gut, backdropped her, and the pair just carried on from there. It was shocking. How NXT UK have allowed her to get away with that is beyond me. Even worse, why did they not edit this out? It's not a live show. It was pre-recorded last week, so there's no reason that should have made the cut at all. It is clear at this point that Isla Dawn is playing the part of the heel, when she was the clear babyface when we left the brand back in April. Isla Dawn applies a nice surfboard stretch with her boot and knee in the back, which looked proficient, but she undid that with the shittiest, loosest crossface chicken wing you could imagine. Aoife Valkyrie battled back with a great series of kicks, a stunning blockbuster, and the pace began to pick up nicely as Dawn dodged a penalty kick, snagged a roll-up for a near fall, and then Aoife Valkyrie bounced awkwardly off the bottom rope and responded with an enziguri. That set up her finisher. She climbed to the top rope and hit her Peripakaya axe kick for the victory. At least it has a name now. Oh God, what can I say about this match? Firstly, the positives, right? Let's get them out the way. It wasn't as bad as I've probably made it sound. Apart from the one or two mishaps and mistimings, Valkyrie looked like the next star of the NXT UK Women's Division, and Isla Dawn looks better every time I see her. Unfortunately, this match suffered from mistimings and a few minor botches, not to mention the booking. It was the wrong match for both women, essentially. NXT UK should now have identified who its stars are and who they need to build and be booking around that. Both of these women should have been pitted against enhancement talent, hired in just to put them over. Because now an Aoife Valkyrie win, it signals Kaylee Ray retaining next week, and your next feud is Ray versus Valkyrie. It's already written. You can see it happening. Plus, I don't believe there is any money in a Piper Niven NXT UK Women's Championship reign just yet. She has no legitimate challengers, except maybe Amal, but NXT UK has a long way to go with her still. So keep it on Ray for the foreseeable future. Give her strong challengers, and then give it to Niven when you've got 3 or 4 believable heel opponents to stack up underneath her. You can't just give it to someone like Piper Niven without several threats to immediately push onto her. You know, she'll stall, the championship will stall in Toni Storm fashion, and that's not good for anybody. So who would these threats be, I was asking myself. Well, Ginny for one, she's due a push. Amal is coming on in leaps and bounds since we last saw her, so there's 2. The other obvious choice I'd say, is Nina Samuels. But I don't want any of these 3 women just fed to a babyface when they have so much more potential. Apart from that, it's anyone's guess, I think. I mean, I know other marks aren't, but I'm a huge believer that NXT needs to sign Layla Hirsch. Just imagine Layla Hirsch versus Piper Niven in a huge rivalry over that championship. That would be a money spinner. Not to mention amazing. But away from Hirsch, I think it's time NXT UK hired some more females, but known and notable heels, because that is what Piper Niven is going to need when she eventually wins the NXT UK Women's Championship. I don't think it will be next week. The last question from this: where does Isla Dawn go from here? She's been getting better, but she's not being looked at seriously by management. Personally, and I've said this before months ago, I'd team her with Xia Brookside for a while, continue that pairing, and then turn Isla on Xia down the line. It's not much, but because Xia Brookside is so loved, then it would work in getting Isla Dawn over as a huge heel. And who knows, in a year from now, with the machine behind her and some determination to make a new star, maybe she could be the one who dethrones either Kaylee Ray or Piper Niven. We are given a video package for the NXT UK Heritage Cup. Now, I'm sure you've all heard about it by now. It's basically a tournament that will be fought under British rounds rules. And if you don't remember them, if you don't remember the Cassius Ohno Sid Scala match from the beginning of this year, then we will recap you on it when we get to the tournament in a few weeks' time. However, and this is something that you may have heard, you might not have heard, it's been confirmed that the Heritage Cup will be the official mid-card championship for NXT UK after the tournament ends. There's no word yet on whether the winner will also get a NXT UK Heritage Championship belt, but the Heritage Cup will be defended as a mid-card championship, which is only good news. NXT UK needed a mid-card title badly, so we got our wish, and I'm excited to see how that pans out and what plans they have for it. The video package goes through the competitors and tells us that there's one wild card. Now that's either going to be Jordan Devlin or some new NXT UK star they've signed and managed to keep under wraps. Either way, I'm good with whoever it is. However, if it turns out to be Pete Dunne, I might just come in my pants. I will ask this though, why the fuck is Joseph Collins there? It's time to relaunch your brand, and still they're pushing him as something special. Mind-boggling. How does this tournament go, I hear you ask from the back there? Well, thank you very much for shouting out. Probably predictably, I'm going to be honest with you. But I would love to see them take a huge risk and do something outside the box. Personally, Flash Morgan Webster needs this tournament. He needs the Heritage Cup. He needs to be unveiled as the man who attacked Mark Andrews for costing them the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. There's still that little storyline to wrap up. And then just adopt this smug, superior heel role. That is what Flash Morgan Webster needs right now, rather than to be saddled in a tag team that's going nowhere. And if you've not seen him, his new look, then it's scruffy, big beard. He screams heel, so let's do something with him now. You've had long enough. We're then shown a graphic that tells us Pete Dunne will be on NXT UK next week to draw the brackets for the NXT UK Heritage Cup. I don't think I've ever cheered so loud at a graphic before. Now, some of you might not know this, but Pete Dunne is currently serving as NXT UK producer. He can't go back to America to NXT yet, so he's backstage. He's helping to put these shows together under Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and I couldn't be happier. Do prepare yourselves though. When you see him next week, he has lost a ton of weight and he looks absolutely amazing. He's ripped, he's worked on his physique and his body, and I'm going to stop talking about him now because it sounds weird. Ilja Dragunov versus Noam Dar in the main event. And finally, we get our first great main event of the relaunch of NXT UK. And it's nice that the first great main event of the relaunch of NXT UK is also the first main event of the relaunch of NXT UK. This match made at the top of the hour. And before we get into this, Noam Dar seems to be auditioning for the part of Rick Mail in something. The facial expressions he pulls with that hair are amazing. The match kicks off with a lovely takedown by Dragunov and an MMA stance which Dar breaks out of. The pair fight to their feet, but Noam can't shake off the Russian, so he uses the ropes to break and then goes after the arm. But Dragunov avoids a kick to the ankle, and Noam Dar dodges a spinning back chop. With so much intensity, Dragunov nails a crossbody and a huge chop which sends Dar to the outside, and once the pair are back in the ring, they go up top where the momentum changes. Dar kicks Dragunov off of the second rope and seemingly injures his ankle, which becomes the focus of the bout. Noam Dar hits a lovely Northern Lights suplex and stomps on the ankle to build drama. Dragunov sells this to perfection. Like, you can believe his ankle is actually broken. The Scot throws him into the ropes with a cravat hold, and Dar is lovely and cocky. He hasn't lost any of his prickishness. The pair trade kicks and elbows. Dragunov nails a suplex and hard-running knee into the corner, and it's at this point you realise both men are really going for it with the strikes. Like, they connect like they're beating the shit out of each other, and it only aids the bout. Dragunov hits a huge clothesline. Dar counters the Gotch lift into an Umaplanta armbar and tries the champagne super knee bar, but Dragunov breaks the hold. They trade stiff uppercuts. Noam Dar connects with a wicked lariat to the back of the head for a near fall and downward spiral, which he then transitions into a lovely armbar, and Dragunov sells it by biting down on his own fist in a moment of pure brilliance. Dragunov goes for Torpedo Moscow, but Alexander Wolf is down. He grabs Ilja Dragunov's foot, and that causes enough of a distraction. However, the end sequence sees Dragunov send Dar into Wolf and then connects with the Torpedo Moscow for the victory. After the match, Walter appears and the pair stare each other down as the show goes off the air. This was a very good main event and a great way to cap off the relaunch of NXT UK. Was it outstanding? No. For me, Dragunov's best NXT UK match is still that bout with Joe Coffey that he had. You can't beat it for storytelling, pace, drama, timing. But this will still go down as a very, very good bout and a platform on which to build your next huge star. So, was the relaunch of NXT UK perfect? Absolutely not. I can say that with all the love and devotion in the world for this brand. The new little bits, the wrestlers' flags from their home country appearing on the match nameplate, longer bouts, a better pace, more action, and it all works really well, and I hope they can continue on that course. However, with everything on this podcast, I have to balance it out with the negative. And not because I enjoy picking fault either, but because anyone who knows me knows that I hold this brand near and dear to my heart, and I hold it on a pedestal, really. I want it to be the best it possibly can be. The booking here felt the same as when we left the brand in April, unfortunately. Now, they've had 6 long months to change everything, and it really doesn't look like they've done much with their booking mentality at all. Me and Travis sat here 6 months ago and we gave a list of things that needed to be done if NXT UK was going on hiatus. Things that would have improved the brand, the booking, the overall feel. Things that would have made it fresh and more exciting, and they did none of those things, and that annoyed me. Now though, they have the chance to change everything, to shake everything up with the NXT UK Heritage Cup, and I genuinely expect the world from this concept and this tournament. After everything they've been through, the accusations, the small-minded people saying it should be closed down because of the accusations, the stale feel of it back in April, they now have a chance to shock everyone and alter the landscape. So I expect this tournament to alter everything for the better. And if it doesn't, then NXT UK management are fools. Absolute fucking idiots. You can't come off a half a year hiatus and expect to be able to book the same way as you did before. The world has changed now. The world of wrestling has changed in particular. We have missed NXT UK, and in that absence, we expect them to come back fighting. This was a good start, and now it has to be built upon week by week. I don't want to see the NXT UK of January to April 2020. I want to see the new NXT UK. But I'm not going to be hard on it this week, he says, after having been hard on it. Yes, it had its good bits. Yes, it had its questionable bits. But in the end, NXT UK is back, and I could not be happier. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me this week. That is all we have. That was the first episode of the relaunched NXT UK. And join us on Friday for In Your House 9 International Incident. We are going Mondays, we are going Fridays like we said, for as long as humanly possible, or until we get the In Your House reviews done and dusted, which I'm hoping to have finished for you by Christmas. Once they're done, we will go back to once a week, unless there's anything we particularly want to do a retro review on. You can catch me on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. You can catch Travis on Twitter at The HibickyTMD. UnionSmack.BigCartel.com for all your merchandise needs, and Lulu.com to purchase a copy of my book, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley, and a copy of my second book, NXT UK Year 1. And I promised you I'd do the giveaway question here at the end. So I want you to tell me how many casket matches The Undertaker and Yokozuna had between the end of 1993 and the end of 1994. These include casket matches on pay-per-view, live events, and television dark matches. You can DM me your answer by October the 31st on Twitter. My DMs are open. Or you can tweet me your answer on Twitter. Do not leave it in the comments below because people will copy. That is all. Thank you very much for joining me. Join me again on Friday for In Your House 9 International Instant, and then again, fingers crossed, next Monday for NXT UK episode 113. Kaylee Ray, Piper Niven for the NXT UK Women's Championship. Until then, have yourselves a good week, wear a mask, stay safe. Cheerio, mates.